Now, a couple of things before I talk about this lens from Brightin Star. The first is this book by a Canadian photographer called Jameel. Now, I featured this book in a video a few weeks ago. I think that video was how I set up my M11-P. He's just sent me his new book, which is called Yellowknife. Again, shot on the M11-P and a 35mm Summicron. Now, I didn't know places like this existed in Canada. Yellowknife is the capital of the Northwest Territory in Canada. It looks like a really interesting place, and there's some beautiful photos in here. I will put a link to this book. It's an Amazon link down below in the description. I'll also put a link to his YouTube channel and his other social media as well. So please check him out. He's a really cool photographer, a really nice guy too, and he does shoot on the M11-P. Now, I will be doing a follow-up video with this lens because I'm heading to Japan in a few weeks, and I think this lens is more suited for street photography. We don't do much street photography in New Zealand because there's not many people here, and I'm really looking forward to using this lens in Japan. So if you want to see that video, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell icon, and you get a notification when that video comes out. I will be testing on the MP and the M11-P. Now, this is a 28mm f2.8 pancake lens for Leica M mount cameras. I'm going to take it off my MP a minute so you can see how small it is. Put it back on. It's like a body cap, basically. And it's finished in this beautiful gloss black paint, which matches my MP really well. It does look good on there. Now, this lens is for M mount. It's manual focus, obviously, but you can adapt this to almost any mirrorless camera, but it is designed for Leica M mount cameras. Now, on the bottom here, you have the focus. So you can change the focus here. Now, it goes from the closest focusing, which is 70 centimeters, all the way to infinity. And it is real infinity. So when you stop, hard stop there, it is infinity. It's not infinity plus a little bit like some of the cheaper Chinese lenses you can get. They go past infinity, so you think you're at infinity, so say like 10 meters or plus away from you, and it's slightly out of focus. This is not. I've tested it. That is true infinity. And again, like I said, it goes all the way to 70 centimeters. Now, the aperture is a little bit fiddly. It's this little dial here you have to turn. You can see that on the camera. And obviously the aperture goes from f2.8, I think, all the way up to f16. This lens sweet spot is 5.6 f8. It's very sharp at 2.8. Don't get me wrong. I'm really impressed with how sharp this lens is at 2.8. But for street photography, I think f8 is probably the sweet spot. F11 is still good. It does start to get a little bit soft at f16. So if you keep it 5.6, f8, f11, you're going to get some nice sharp images. And again, the focus is really nice and smooth. The aperture is declicked. You have to take that into account. It's a declicked aperture, so you can easily knock it if your fingers are anywhere near the lens. Now, you'll notice on the lens, I'm going to take this off for a minute. I requested the clear filter when they offered to send me the lens because I didn't want to put on this. I'm going to put this here, this little tiny, I'm going to try and put this on without damaging the thread. Horrible little metal lens cap. So I requested the clear filter so I can just chuck this in my bag with this on and it won't damage the front element of the lens. Now, because the front element sits so far forward and there is no lens hood, you are going to get flaring. Not all the time, but you will get it, and it is noticeable, as you can see from these images. Just if the sun hits that front element, it will give you quite a strong lens flare, I can say. But that's the nature of the lens. You're not going to get away from that because there is no lens hood, and the element sits right at the front of the lens as well. Obviously, there is no viewfinder blockage at all because the lens is so low profile. Now, I've been using this lens basically at 3 meters. So I'm going to set up to 3 meters, which is there. And I have it at f8. That's how I have this set up for street photography. So I'm zone focusing with this lens. So f8 at 3 meters on a 28mm, I find perfect for street photography, especially in New Zealand because we can't get too close because there's not many people around. And people do notice you. Even with a small camera, like an M camera, people will notice you. It's not like somewhere like Japan. You go to Tokyo and there's just millions of people everywhere. So people don't really notice you out there. But in New Zealand, they do notice you. So I do set this up this way for zone focusing, which is 3 meters and f8. And I do find that works the best. So here are a few photos that I've taken with this lens on my M11-P and also on the SL3. They're not the most exciting photos because, like I said, there's not a lot happening here in New Zealand and it is winter time and it is really cold. There will be more photos and a follow-on review with this lens from Japan, so keep an eye out for that video. But check out these photos and I'll talk about the lens and what I think of the lens after the slideshow. As you can see, this lens produces some really nice images. Even wide open at f2.8, it's pleasantly sharp in the center. It's a little bit soft in the corners, and it doesn't really go away even if you shoot at f8, f11. But you just have to be aware of that, and it is kind of the nature of the lens. This lens is only $358 US at the time of making this video, which is an absolute bargain for a lens that looks this good and can produce images like that. It does take a little bit getting used to, this focusing system, and I have knocked this aperture ring a few times. I wish that was clicked. They could click that some way and it locked in, it'd be really nice. It is quite easy to knock this. But apart from those two things, there's nothing else wrong with it. It's soft in the corners a little bit, and the aperture ring can be knocked easy. It's a really fun lens to use. I do like using it. It doesn't take up any space in my bag. It stays in my camera body all the time. And it just does its job really well, especially if you're shooting this at f8 and you're shooting at, say, 2.5 to 3 meters. You're zone focusing with this lens for street photography. It's perfect for that. And like I said, it takes up no space, and it does look good on these cameras too. So that's it for this video. Don't forget, there will be a follow-up video in a few weeks testing this lens in Japan on my M11-P and my MP. So if you want to see that video, hit the subscribe button. And again, like I said, I think you've got to hit the bell icon as well. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. And as always, thank you so much for watching.